Hello, everyone, and welcome to Across the Great Iron. This is Eddie, and I want to talk about something. The preseason's over, and we've got a week break before the NFL season starts, and I'm always excited about this time of the year because the season is about to start. I'm about to have my late nights because I live in the United Kingdom, and then I begin to have all the hopes for the Dallas Cowboys again. You know what they say is the hope that kills, right? But today I'm not going to really be talking about Dallas Cowboys. I just want to talk about something that I think you know everyone is always having on their minds. Draft is over, and all the quarterbacks that are being chosen very highly, from their teams, who there's massive expectation for. And this draft, there were a number of quarterbacks that were selected. It was argued that it's probably one of the best classes when it comes to quarterbacks and things like that. Now, hold on. I am not gonna be doing any of this analysis, from someone that has a very deep understanding of football. I'm not gonna be breaking down, plays or anything like that. And but this is just as a fan, a fan who's watched, football for a very long time, followed the NFL, and for so many years, right here in the United Kingdom, absolutely love the game. And I feel like, after watching the game for so long, I can start to, make my mind up when I see players, right? I always used to say about Carson Wentz, when he was in Philadelphia Eagles, that, he's not quite there. And I remember the debate between him and Dak Prescott and all of that, and how everybody thought that he was going to be amazing. And I'm not even sure he's in the league anymore. So I do want to talk about, why, the QBs, really struggle in preseason. At least this is how I see it, why they don't always look, as amazing as you would want to. Granted, there are a couple of exceptions, right? There are players, who in their preseason look, good. Dak Prescott looked good in his preseason, and that, followed out. Patrick Mahomes looked decent in his preseason. I think Lamar Jackson looked decent in his preseason, but there are other, quarterbacks, that even in their rookie season, they weren't looking that great, and then they kicked on. So Jalen Hurts didn't look really good, but then kicked on. Still question marks about him, but he kicked on. You could argue, that Peyton Manning, right? He didn't do very well in his rookie season. I think he threw like 20 something interceptions, something like that. But hey, he's in the Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna talk about some quarterbacks. So Caleb Williams, who got drafted, for the Chicago Bears. There's a lot of promise in him. Chicago Bears have really been sorry. So they need some help, and boy, do they need help. And Caleb Williams is the savior, right? At least according to a lot of people. And then you've got Bo Nix, who after the showing of Russell in Denver, I think that you could argue that there's a clean slate for the Denver Broncos, so Bo Nix potentially could be that. And then you've got Jayden Daniels, so he's been drafted to Washington Commanders, and he's also in my division because I support the Dallas Cowboys, and so there is high expectations for him, in terms of what he's going to be able to do there. And of course, we have the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator that has gone over there, as a head coach. So this is going to be interesting. So I'm just gonna look through some of the, and I've got some notes here just so that I can be accurate. So Caleb Williams, he had a mix, preseason. I know there's a lot of hype about him. Um, he completed a couple of passes, looked decent, a couple of good throws as well. But I think you can still, the Bears fans, I was talking to a Bears fan, and they're still like, well, we don't really know whether he's the answer, right? So until the preseason kicks out. So he's not really answered, all of the questions, right? I know what the media is saying. I know what, all the big networks are saying, but they always say that, right? Especially when a quarterback, goes number one overall. Just look at the records, right? They always big them up, right? I remember, Baker Mayfield, he was bigged up, completely. Trevor Lawrence always bigged up as well. So when they like some quarterbacks, the hype train is always there. So, you might want to, just make up your own mind what you think about what's going on there. And then you've got Jayden Daniels. He threw a touchdown. Well, he didn't throw a touchdown. I think he managed a touchdown with his legs. And he wasn't a disaster. And he looked composed. He looked a little bit assured, but I think you can say that there's still questions there. I think Bo Nix is probably the one that did the best in preseason. I think he had a solid completion rate. I think he threw for over 125 yards, something like that. Had a touchdown. He looked actually, in terms of numbers, he's probably the best quarterback out there in terms of their preseason performance. So why do I think that these quarterbacks, struggle a lot? What is it in the preseason? I think first of all, the speed of the NFL, right? That's my first thing. The speed of the NFL is always a shock. The college, slightly a little bit slower. People always say, well, we want things to slow down for the quarterbacks, so that they can start to, go through their progression, and all of those things that people always talk about in terms of what makes a good quarterback, great. And in the preseason, especially for the rookies, this is their first test of the quarter, well, the NFL, right? And, the speed is different, very different. So I think that also counts for something, right? I know that they're supposed to be talented, but they're going into, a different speed. I mean, imagine yourself, going into, your job, for the first time. And yes, I know these guys are going to be paid lots of money, and I know that quarterback is very different. But no matter who you are, when you go into your first job, the first day, no one is expecting you to be all the way awesome, right? So you've got to put that into consideration, and that really, leads to the other thing, for me, chemistry. Right. In preseason, you don't not only have a lot of the starters, right? You're having the backups, people that are going to run in the practice squad, the backups of the backups, right? So you can't take everything, that you see there as gospel, right? If someone performed very well, right, you can maybe look at the mechanics of what they did, but you can't necessarily look at, the overall performance and say, well, he's going to be amazing, right? Because most of these guys that play the preseason are not going to make the squad, right? Let's be honest. Everyone knows this, right? And so people are really looking for that, 4 or 5 players to add to their 53-man roster, really. Because typically, maybe the first 40 players are already, selected. The coaches have made their minds about who they want to play. And I think it's right. Okay, who are we gonna put in special teams? Who are we gonna keep in the practice squad? Who has promise? Who can be a project? Who can be a starter, right? And so if you think about that, so that's also gonna be the thing. And quarterbacks, right? They're throwing to people that they potentially are never gonna throw to again, right? And you're saying, okay, yeah, no, we want to test their ability to be able to throw, but timing is also a thing, right? For quarterbacks and receivers, especially, right? Everybody always talks about being in sync. People are talking about Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. They've held out. Are they going to be the same? When they go into their teams in week one? We don't know. I, for one, I'm worried. I'm concerned that, CeeDee Lamb is going to be out of sync. He was out of sync in that game against the Green Bay Packers. So, I don't know if he's been, behind the scenes, practicing with Dak Prescott, but surely that's going to be a concern. The other thing for me is the weight of expectation, right? The weight of expectation. Look at the Chicago Bears. They have been sorry. And I know, that there are teams like the Cincinnati Bengals who were sorry, got Joe Burrow, and they went to the Super Bowl, right? But that doesn't always happen, right? And I think, a lot of times, because it happened in one particular team, people are thinking that is always going to happen. The NFL is a very, very difficult league, right? There is a reason why the draft is the way it is. There's a reason why, except you're the Chiefs, people don't just go to the Super Bowl every single, season. it's incredibly hard. And that's why probably a lot has to be said about the Chiefs, right? In terms of what they do. But this is not about the Chiefs, this is about rookie quarterbacks. So, all I'm saying is that these players need some grace. Now, can they turn it around? Um, I think so. I think these players can turn it around. I think that, whether it's the Bo Nix, whether it's the Jayden, whether it's the Caleb Williams, I think that, you can't throw them out, until you hit that week one, right? And you've got to let these players, come into their own. Patrick Mahomes sat behind, Alex, for a while before he actually played, right? People have talked about, Jaden Love. He sat behind, Aaron Rodgers for a while before he actually got in, and he looks decent. And maybe some of this, rookie players need to sit behind, a proficient, quarterback, and kind of, learn day to day what it is, to play in the NFL, because it's really, really hard. So, see, I think it's part of the process. Don't write it out. Don't write this, quarterbacks out. Don't overly expect that you're going to like change, things from the franchises, and you just go from 0 to 100%. I just think that's not realistic, and I think, time and time will always show, that, quarterbacks, especially in the preseason, they're a work in progress. They have to be a work in progress. So, listen, I'm excited. What do you think? What do you think about what I've said? With regards quarterbacks, do you think that is accurate? Do you think the expectations should be that high? Do you think that, the quarterbacks that you've seen in the preseason, the ones that have performed very well, are definitely going to continue that into the season? Or do you think that, we're going to get some shocks, as is expected in the NFL? Let me know in your comments. Please press that like and subscribe button. And this is Across the Gridiron. I'll be, trying to keep this as regular as possible. It's not easy, posting. It's not easy, doing this, but I love it. So, and I want to keep doing as much as possible. So I'll be looking at obviously Dallas Cowboys games, once that kicks in, so yeah, thank you for all that you do. You keep on watching. I'll see you in the next one.